Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me? Just give a thumbs up. All right. And thank you, Melanie and Casey and Shoshana and Carlos. And it's an honor to join you all on this Earth Day. The first Earth Day had a very strong labor showing and support, and a lot of important legislation came out of it in the 70s. So um, it's important that we do today what people before us did in the civil rights movement, the labor movement, and the environmental movement, which were movements that were intertwined. So I'm Matteo Colombi, and I'm here to bring you the greetings and solidarity of our solid waste and recycling division in the Teamsters Union. There's more than 30,000 sanitation workers countrywide that are Teamsters. They're helpers, drivers, recycling workers, a few landfill workers. And I want to make sure I say everything that I came here to say. So we're the largest union of sanitation workers in the private sector, and we've long been supportive of community and labor efforts to move to zero waste with justice for everybody involved. Our waste system needs reform in all its aspects. Waste is a $67 billion industry. Over 2/3 of waste management is now in private hands, with giant multi-billion-dollar companies that span the entire continent. 2/3 of landfills are in the hands of the top 3 companies, for example. You may have seen some of their names in the neighborhoods that we live in and in our cities, like Waste Management, Republic Services, Waste Connections. Incineration is also very consolidated. And companies like Covanta and Wheelabrator dominate the sector across many cities. Most sanitation workers work without the protections and benefits that come with collectively bargained labor contract. They don't have a union. They don't have a voice, a collective voice at work. Sanitation work is very unsafe work. It's the 6th most deadly in America. There are a lot of injuries, toxic exposures to sharp cuts you can imagine. In most cases, wages are too low. Retirement and healthcare protections are inadequate. This is essential work, but we've seen a lot of conversation about essential workers. Well, we've seen that their work is valued, but the workers themselves are not treated in the manner that they should. And we cannot continue on the current path. Waste is overwhelming our environment. We're burying most of it. It's getting lost at sea, left in rivers, in our alleys. It is impoverishing sanitation workers who do the work, creating environmental hazards and injustice in so many communities, as we heard here tonight. As a society, we need to reduce how much gets wasted, what kind of waste we generate, how we handle the materials, and how we treat the people impacted by the waste cycle. And even though big business today does dominate the waste landscape, the truth is that many cities, counties, municipalities still provide some residential service, and above all, local government and local communities have a lot of power to drive overall reform across all operators. And I think people who are gathering here today understand that very well. And we got to build a way out of burn, bury, and exploitation. We got to build out a different flow: reduce, reuse, recycle, and respect, which we feel is missing for communities and workers. So let's stop wasting materials, the communities and the people involved. We can turn this into a way to recover and redevelop. As Casey was pointing out, the opportunity that Detroit has right now, and then really Baltimore has. I need to say something about what we know as Teamsters, which is that we know about fighting against exploitation. And across America, waste workers are on front lines of public health. And yet, at the beginning of the pandemic, somebody mentioned the pandemic, our brothers and sisters were not getting the paid time off necessary to deal with COVID. And we pushed back and got extra paid time off from our biggest employers. That's the value of having an organized workforce, organized in a union. Waste and recycling Teamsters have long been connected to the great battles for civil rights, because battles for civil rights were always also battles for workers' rights. That's where Martin Luther King died, on a picket line of waste workers in Memphis, in Tennessee. And that's why we still hold signs that say, "I am a man," because we're not objects to be abused, not property. We're people deserving of respect and the means to make a living. So right now, our union is fighting to get Martin Luther King Day as a paid holiday across all of our public services. There's 35,000 employees in that company. And then I think we're on a good way to get there, and we'll push to get other employers. But imagine how many decades later we're having to fight for one extra paid holiday, right? On such a significant day. And maybe you don't know, but Republic is the second biggest trash company. It's owned by Bill Gates, who also owns shares in Waste Management. And so if you feel that the very wealthy, the ultra wealthy, the super wealthy are in some sort of struggle with the rest of us, it's because it's true most of the times. It's unfortunately true, And we believe as Teamsters that community and workers should come first, which is why we're here on Earth Day tonight to speak with you. And I want to address now the inspiring fight that Baltimore is having to shift its system, to go to zero waste and a just transition, and shut down the combined incinerator while making sure that the workers there are not harmed by it. And let me tell you, Shoshanda is right. Baltimore, it's on its way, and we don't need to wait 10 years until the incinerator contract is done to begin the transition to zero waste. Really, we can start now by taking food waste out. 40% of all waste volume is discarded food. That's kind of the average across America. Food waste contributes to methane and carbon dioxide emissions. And whether it goes in the incinerator or gets in a landfill, it's going to go up in the sky. And, we've heard about toxic exposure and public health and asthma. And now we also have to worry about climate catastrophe. And of all places, Baltimore and Maryland are very exposed to rising sea levels. And when that gas is up high in the atmosphere, it heats up the planet even faster. And right now, all that carbon in food and yard waste is being blown into the sky by burning it or landfilling it. We need to get out of that. We can return that to soil and to nutrient. We can do that. We can do that if we collect the food scraps separately and compost them. And I know people do very good work, and there's a lot of great community efforts, backyard composting and community compost, and people doing it at their home if they have a small garden. And these approaches are a very good way to learn, to educate the public, our communities, to stay connected. But voluntary and small scale alone just can't manage the volume. Systemic problems need systemic solutions. And we need systems that fit large scale food waste generation. And what we've learned also is if you take the food waste out, then you can figure out your strategy to deal with the rest, with the plastic, the glass, all that cardboard that's coming from the online shopping. Don't mix the food with the other waste. And then you'll be able to better deal and tackle the question of what to do with the rest. So this is the time to really devise solid plans. And Baltimore and the state of Maryland can get going, and they're starting to get going. So in Maryland, legislation has just passed that makes it easier to begin setting up necessary infrastructure and programs for food waste recovery. The governor set up a sustainable materials management process. There's real momentum, on building a way out of the burner-bearing approach to waste. We're done with incinerator and landfilling status quo. And as Teamsters, we've seen with our own eyes, more and more cities across the globe are taking the lead, taking the food waste out, and then trying to figure out what to do with the rest of the waste. And in some cases, our own brothers and sisters are employees in these established zero waste programs, as in San Francisco. And we know with zero waste programs, workers can get good wages, communities can get local hire programs, cities really boost significantly the diversion of waste out of landfilling, of incineration, really build out environmental progress and recover economic value. If we do it right. That's the key. If we do it right.
Thank you, Matteo.
And to us, it means workers' rights are respected and protected, community iron, community accountability, taking care of the workers like the incinerator workers who are going to get displaced. So this is really kind of our contribution here. And I know I kind of ran probably a little long. So we're at this cusp, and this community can do it. And it needs a city to really start putting the first steps forward, to really build out this infrastructure, and its anchor institutions, its major food waste generators, they need to be there at the start. There are major institutions, there are major food waste generators. They need to be part of the solution from the beginning, before we ask households to come in. Those with the greatest power can carry the greatest burden in the transition up front, and take the responsibility to do so. And we're happy to be part of this effort, and to support everybody on this call, here in Baltimore, and with the experience that we gather with all the places that we represent people.